I'd like to call to order the West Covina Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, February 11th at 7:03 p.m. If you'd all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment for meditation. The pledge will be led by Commissioner Menifee.
All together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Baez? Commissioner Menifee? Commissioner Castellanos?
Present.
Commissioner Blackburn? Present. Chairman Holtz?
Present. Any addition or changes to the minutes of the regular meeting of January 28th? None? If so, stand approved. Brings us to oral communications. This is a time, let me make a statement first here. I know people are here about the guest house situation, and I would suggest that rather than speak at oral communications, you hold until we get to that item on the agenda. Otherwise, we'll be doing, back and forth type of thing. You don't have to, but that would be my suggestion. Okay? Thank you. Oral communications. This is a time when any member of the public may speak to the Commission on any matter within the scope of duties assigned to the Commission relating to non-agendized or consent calendar items. Other matters included on this agenda may be addressed when that item is under consideration. For all oral communications, the chairperson may impose reasonable limitations on public comments to assure an orderly and timely meeting. The Ralph M. Brown Act limits the Planning Commission and staff's ability to respond to public comments at this meeting. Thus, your comments may be agendized for a future meeting or referred to staff. The Commission may ask questions for clarification if desired at this time. By policy of Commission, oral communications at this time on the agenda is limited to a total of 5 minutes per individual. Persons who are not afforded the opportunity to speak at this time may do so under item E later on the agenda. Does anyone want to speak at this time on oral communications? Lloyd? Okay, Lloyd Johnson.
Commissioner Holtz and Commissioners. Basically what I'm talking about, and I know it's under public hearing, but it's on number 2 through 23, the variance for all this. This is a project that when it first came up, I was one of the first people who got up and talked against the moratorium that was put on this property, and I've been talking against it ever since. And I am so happy that the moratorium is off and this developer can finally build in these homes. There's going to be some beautiful homes up there. So I'm hoping that tonight all we do after we go through everything is that we're going to cross our T's and dot our I's and say, let's move this project forward. It's going to be a beautiful project for West Covina up in the South Hills. And somewhere down the future we can start, recouping some of the loss. I imagine all the tax dollars going to be coming in for these $1 million homes. So I think it's going to be a wonderful project. We'd love to see these 22 lots get built, and let's hope in the future we see the rest of them start getting built. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Oral communications? Okay, if not, we'll close the oral communication this time. It takes us to public hearings. At this time, there's 23 items, I think, that are basically the same. So I'm going to ask for a staff report on all those items at this time. If we could have the staff report, please.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes?
Upon a discussion with the city attorney on this issue, I was advised to recruit myself from taking any part in any discussion on the topic.
Thank you.
So,
Commissioner Vaz is a recluse at this time. We have to wait till she leaves the chambers.
I'm going to be presenting this report. As was discussed, there are 22 applications. We're going to combine them into one. The applicant here is Vandale Homes. They're proposing to construct new houses on 22 individual lots. The lots were originally subdivided in the 1980s. And that presents a unique situation. We don't usually have lots that were subdivided 35 years ago that were now developed. Most of the times when we subdivide lots, the houses or improvements are placed on those at a much more rapid pace. The proposed houses on the subject properties require the approval of 11 conditional use permits, 22 variances, 22 administrative use permits, and 22 subcommittee for design reviews. While each of the proposals could be reviewed separately, for efficiency's sake, the reports have been combined into one report and presentation. There's 22 lots. 20 of the lots are contiguous, and that's what you see on the screen behind you. If we could have the lights turned down, it might be a little bit easier to see some of this. These lots are accessible from Hillside Drive via Foothill Drive or Mountain Ridge Road. And that's not, you can't see that on this graphic, but this is Mountain Ridge Road and this is Foothill, and they line up with Hillside right about here. Hillside's an east-west street that goes from about Grand Avenue to almost Azusa. The rough grading for these lots has been completed and street improvements are completed, as you can see on the aerial. These 20 lots are located on Horizon Hills Drive and Mountain Ridge Road. The properties are adjacent to a landscape maintenance district, which is this area here, and also adjacent to 3 vacant properties, which are here. You'll be able to see them on one of the other graphics we have. There are 3 additional properties that are also subdivided in this area that are not included. And it's then adjacent to existing houses in this vicinity. There also is a proposal to build a house at 3061 Sunrise Road. The property is located to the east of the 20 contiguous properties and is located on the northwest corner of Hillside and Sunrise. This property is surrounded by developed lots. We also have a proposal to build a house at 1408 Hidden Valley Drive. This property is located on to the north of the 20 contiguous lots, not very far, just a couple streets up from there, or down from there, if we're talking topography. The property is located where Countrywood Lane turns into Hidden Valley Drive, and this property is also surrounded by developed lots. This is the site plan for the 20 contiguous lots, and I realize it's not very legible on this slide, but you can see that there are houses that are shown on each of the lots, and where the improvements are proposed to be completed, and you can see the streets here, and you can see those 3 other lots that I was mentioning that are still will not be developed as part of this. These lots already have homes on them. You can also see from this, you can also tell from the topography, the aerial, that there's topography there where you have these lines coming together. That's where there's hillsides. And there's hillsides around most of the lots. They're all pad lots that are developed and rough graded out. This slide also shows you the same thing for the design of the Sunrise lot and the Hidden Valley lot. This being the Sunrise lot, which is a fairly rectangular lot, fairly flat, and then this being the one on Hidden Valley, which turns into Countrywood here, the house being here. That's a kind of an elongated triangle. The proposed homes include 4 different architectural styles, including Santa Barbara, which is the top one. Let me point them out as I go. Santa Barbara, and then we have Andalusian, and then formal Spanish and Spanish colonial. So those are the 4 model types that they're proposing. These include 2 different floor plans. The Santa Barbara and Andalusian styles share floor plan 1, and the formal Spanish and Spanish colonial share floor plan 2. Each floor plan has a variety of options available to the buyer. And most of those options have to do with external improvements like balconies and patios and what they call California rooms, outside rooms, some other kind of room arrangements, additional bedrooms instead of office, that kind of thing. The Santa Barbara, all the houses are two-story. The Santa Barbara informal Spanish styles include stucco exterior, decorative tile enhancements, exposed rafter tails, arch windows, shutters, and a hip roof comprised of concrete S-tiles. The Andalusian and Spanish colonial styles include stucco exterior, brick fascia, brick trim on the windows, exposed rafter tails, corbels on the gables, and a gable roof comprised of concrete S-tiles. All the houses include either a 3-car garage or a 4-car garage. I'm going to go through several slides here at a fairly rapid pace, kind of to give you an idea of the elevations, the individual elevations. These are not colored elevations, but give you an idea of the design. So this is Plan 1, which is the Santa Barbara elevation. This is also Plan 1 with the Andalusian elevations. And the dark that didn't come out very well here is basically a brick stone facade treatment. Then we have the formal Spanish elevations, and then the Spanish colonial. And again, Spanish colonial has this is the brick or stone facade. And the next set of slides are basically indicating, and it's going to go through at a rapid pace again, but the floor plans for each type. This is a Santa Barbara plan for the first floor, Santa Barbara plan for the second floor. We have the Andalusian first floor plan. And you can see as we go through here, I pointed this out, we'll get to this more as we get into the report, but this is a 3-car garage standard that's Plan 1. And that's the second floor of the Andalusian. Then you have formal Spanish, which is Plan 2. And this is the ground floor of formal Spanish. And you'll see here that we have a standard 4-car garage that's proposed as a standard design. Second floor, formal Spanish. First floor, Spanish colonial. Second floor, Spanish colonial. So now I'm going to cover the proposals, the proposed applications that are required. And this is a summary. We're going to be summarizing. We're not going to go through each lot and talk about each one, but as those of you who have looked at the staff report realize, I try to provide some graphs of that to help you understand. The conditional use permits are required for 11 of the lots. The conditional use permits are required for those lots that exceed a mathematical formula based upon a ratio between the lot size and the floor area of the proposed house. The chart on page 8 of the staff report, which is what you see behind me on the overhead, includes information on the thresholds for those lots that require a CUP. And this chart also, we'll get to it later, but just to point out, the chart also helps you understand which ones need the administrative use permit for that same threshold. The houses on Sunrise and Hidden Valley require the approval of CUPs, as well as 9 of the lots in the Mountain Ridge Horizon Hills area. And I just kind of want to walk through this for a second. So the conditional use permits required here is what we call the large home, which is this last column here. And again, it's a threshold. It's based on that mathematical formula between the size of the house and the size of the lot. And you can see here, it tells you what the process is. There's three lots that don't require either one. They don't require an administrative use permit for what's called a maximum unit size exception. They don't require a conditional use permit for a large home. The reason you'll see if you move across here to this is because they are very large lots. 30,000 square feet in this case, 31,000 square feet in this case, 31,000 square feet in this case. So what that does is it slides that mathematical formula up. And what this chart is telling you is that 6,000 square feet is the threshold for when a maximum unit size exception is required, which requires the administrative use permit. 7,500 is when a conditional use permit is required. This proposed house is 4,663. So hopefully that you can start to see the pattern there. This tells you when an administrative use permit is required. This tells you when a conditional use permit is required. This tells you the size of the house. So this chart tries to explain both of those situations. Variances are required on all 22 of the lots. Proposed variances include front yard fence height, building height, rear yard setback, garage size, and flat area dimension between the rear of the house and the slope. The chart on page 9 of the staff report indicates the variance proposed for each lot. So I'll walk through those, each type of variance, and I'll let you know how many variances are proposed for each type. This is a graphic, or not a graphic, it's a photograph of the type of fence that's being proposed. So this is a front yard fence height variance. It's a variance to deviate from front yard fence height standards, and that is requested on 11 of the 22 properties. Most of the subject properties provide views to the San Gabriel Valley and the mountains. To take maximum advantage of those views, the applicant is proposing a variance to allow a tempered glass front yard fence on certain lots. On those lots where the view is from the front yard, the proposal is to install this type of fence, which has a 2-foot concrete block wall and a 4-foot section of tempered glass on top of the block. The code allows a 6-foot fence in the front yard, but it requires it to be 70% open, basically designed to allow for wrought iron fencing up to 6 feet in height you can see through. Well, this clearly isn't 70% opened, although it sort of performs similar functions. So that's the reason there's 11 lots where the front yard is going to serve as the place where they're going to get their maximum view, so that's why they're proposing this style of fence in those locations. I'm going to leave this graphic up as I talk about some of the other things, but because there's not really a graphic. In terms of building height, that's another proposed variance, and that is proposed on 6 of the properties. The code establishes a building height of 25 feet for single-family homes. An exception is allowed for houses in area districts 4 and 5, which are the area districts in the sort of the southeast part of the city, mostly in hillside areas, and they're the larger lots. Most of those lots are 20 to 40,000 or larger. So all the lots are located in Area District 5 of these 22 lots, except 1408 Hidden Valley Drive, which is located in Area District 3. So 21 are in Area District 5, and so therefore are allowed an exception, which allows an increase in height on a 1-to-1 basis if the setbacks are increased by the same ratio. 25 feet high, 10-foot side yard setback. If they want 26, they need to provide 11-foot side yard setback, and so on. So they're proposing houses ranging from 27 feet 5 inches to 28 feet 5 inches, so a few feet over the 25. Most of the lot, they're proposing those on all the lots. Most of the lots they're able to get the 1-to-1 setback, but on some lots, because of the way the lots shaped, they were not able to accomplish that. So they're proposing, and then on the one lot on Hidden Valley, they're not allowed to request that because they're not in the correct area districts. Rear yard setback, a variance to deviate from rear yard setback requirements is requested on one property. That's the Hidden Valley property. If you recall, that is a triangular lot that's fairly narrow and wide. So the applicant is proposing a 20-foot rear setback where a 25-foot rear setback is required. Now I'm going to talk about garage dimensions. The last two, garage dimensions and flat area dimension, Planning Commission will probably recall because we just went through a code amendment process. These are two of the code standards that were adopted, and so they're asking for some variances from those standards. So for garage dimension, a variance for garage size is requested on all 22 properties. City is in the process of adopting new standards for garages that require 3-car garages when houses are over 4,500 square feet or have 5 or more bedrooms. The new requirements will be in effect prior to the issuance of building permits for this project, so therefore they're going to be required to comply with that code. All the garages in this proposal, as you saw on the floor plans, are tandem garages. They're either 2 up front with 1 behind or 2 up front and 2 behind. The applicant is proposing to vary from the required 10 by 20 dimension for each of the required parking spaces. So not the size, but the dimension. And so let me walk through that a little bit. For Plan 1, this is Plan 1, the standard plan for the garage complies with the code. So we have here, 20 by 20 section and a 12 by 26 section. That's what this is kind of telling you. So this is 12 feet wide by 26. So that's greater than the requirement in size and in dimension. However, one of their options, this is the same plan with an option that would be taken advantage of by one of the buyers, is to add a my space, not a computer, but a space that they can use for office or something to that nature, accessible from the kitchen. That reduces the garage size to 12 by 16. So in that case, if a buyer was going to take advantage of that, they would like to have the ability to let the buyer do that and have that slightly smaller, I shouldn't say smaller, the different dimensions, the 12 by 16 instead of a 10 by 20. So in effect, the proposal is to allow a 604 square foot garage where a 600 square foot garage is required. They're just not meeting the dimensions that we have specified in the code. Okay, for Plan 2, it's a little bit different. So Plan 2, the standard plan is a 4-car garage configuration here, and you'll see it's 20 feet by 36 feet. So in this case, the standard plan is therefore not complying with the 10 by 20. So the code would require a 3-car garage, 20 by 20 up front, 10 by 20 behind. But they're not, this is going to be 16 by 20. So they don't comply with the depth requirement in the code. However, as you can see, they're going to have more than the square footage. They'd end up with instead of a 20 by 40, they would end up 20 by 36. That 4-car garage is 732 square feet where 600 square foot is required. Now, however, when we get to their option, see it's the same floor plan, but they've got an optional master bedroom here. But when they do that, they increase the depth here, so their option does comply. It's a 3-car garage instead of 4, but it complies with a 10 by 20 plus a 20 by 20. All right, so then we have, I'll leave that graphic up for a second, when we talk about the flat area dimension between the rear of the house and the slope. We talked about that. I think you're all familiar with that. The applicant is requesting the approval of a variance to deviate from the standards requiring an open, flat area behind the house on 3 of the lots. The city is in the process of adopting new development standards that will take effect before the building permits can be issued. The applicant is proposing an 8-foot dimension on 2 of the lots and a little over 6 foot on 1 of the lots. Again, where 10 foot is required. So that takes us through the variances. So now we're in the administrative use permits. Administrative use permits are required on 22 of the lots, and they're requested for 2-story houses, maximum unit size exceptions, retaining walls between 4 and 8 feet in height, and 2nd-story balconies greater than 200 square feet. So all of the houses proposed are 2-story. So right off the bat, they'd all require an administrative use permit because of that. As we talked about under the conditional use permit, the maximum size exception is one of those thresholds. There's a 3-step threshold for when houses need to be reviewed. One is the staff level ministerial action. The second one is the administrative use permit, which is a maximum unit size exception. The third one is a large home, which is a conditional use permit. It's based on the mathematical formulas talked about before, and refer back to page 8. 8 of the properties require the approval of a maximum unit size exception. Retaining walls between 4 and 8 feet in height, the code requires the approval of administrative use permit for retaining walls that are between 4 and 8 feet in height, and the applicant is requesting approval on 15 of the lots for retaining walls between those dimensions. And lastly, 2nd-story balconies greater than 200 square feet in size. Most of the proposed homes allow for an optional 2nd-story balcony that is greater than 200 square feet. The code requires the approval of administrative use permit for 2nd-story balconies greater than 200 square feet. And these balconies are generally on the north or west elevations of the house to take advantage of the views. A total of 20 of the properties are requesting administrative use permits for balconies greater than 200 square feet. That gets us to subcommittee for design review. Because all the proposed houses are new houses on vacant lots, the municipal code requires review by the Planning Commission Subcommittee for Design Review, which we normally call the subcommittee. The subcommittee reviewed the applications on January 14, 2014, and determined to forward them to the Planning Commission so they could all be reviewed as a whole package. To allow for evaluation of the compatibility of the proposed houses with the existing neighborhoods, Staff has provided charts in the staff report providing a comparison of the new houses with the existing houses in the neighborhood. These charts were, 3 of them were provided, one for the 20 contiguous lots, one for 3061 Sunrise, and one for 1408 Hidden Valley. Staff has also provided an analysis of the subcommittee guidelines for the proposed houses in the staff report. And the houses surrounding the proposed, they comply, in summary there, they comply with the guidelines, and they're basically 1.2 to 1.58, I think, times larger than the average size of the house around it, depending on which of the 3 that we're looking at. The houses surrounding the proposed houses are 2-story houses for the 20 contiguous lots, primarily 2 stories on the Sunrise lot, and about 50% 2-story on the Hidden Valley lot. In conclusion, staff is recommending approval of the proposed entitlements. There are a total of 55 resolutions before you tonight, 11 conditional use permit resolutions, 22 variance resolutions, 22 administrative use permit resolutions, and the approval of 22 subcommittee reviews. We did notify the property owners in the vicinity of the 20 contiguous lots, as well as the 2 lots that are far off, and we didn't receive any inquiries or calls from anyone that we noticed. Conditions have been included in the resos requiring landscape plans and the installation of landscaping, that CC&Rs be recorded to require property owners to maintain any cross-lot drainage facilities and the slope landscaping that's in place, and also the payment of park-in-lieu fees. All of the proposed houses are located in neighborhoods with large houses and large lots. The great majority of the existing houses are on 2-story houses. Many of them include balconies to take advantage of the dramatic views in the area. The construction of retaining walls will allow for larger level areas for the lots, and the balconies will allow for residents to optimize the views from the proposed houses. The proposed houses feature 4 model types: Santa Barbara, Andalusian, Formal Spanish, and Spanish Colonial. The proposed houses feature a variety of architectural features and exterior finishes, and we do have boards here that I can pass around if you like. There's 8 different treatments that are proposed. So again, a variety. While the proposed houses require a range of entitlements, the proposed houses are consistent with the other houses in their respective vicinities. And just a final note, this was quite an endeavor. I have never in my career had to prepare 55 resolutions for anything. 55 resolutions, there may have been times when we didn't do that many in a year. So it was quite an undertaking, and I do want to thank the applicants for assisting in helping us with some of that. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This might better be a question for the applicant, but I was just wondering, with the glass walls, why did they decide to go glass? And I'm all for seeing the views and all that, rather than the wrought iron. And the reason I ask that question, glass is great, except when it gets water spots on it, and after a while it gets, pitted, and you're really destroying the view. Wouldn't it be better off with the wrought iron? Was that ever brought up?
I don't think I had that discussion with them. I think I would let them answer that question when it's that time.
Any questions of staff before I see if there's an applicant who wants to come up?
Just aside from the CUPs, variances, AUPs, and the design review, how's everything going with moving along, getting them ready for construction? Everything pretty good?
Well, I think this was the big hurdle we were trying to get over. I think we're going to be on they'll be on the downhill run after we get through this. They have, I've forgotten now what they've submitted, but I believe they've submitted some plans to the building department for review and grading information too. So they're in the process of that, yes. And they've submitted a model home plan for us that we'll be reviewing and hopefully be able to get that going. That'll be their first thing they'll build is 2 model homes.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Would the applicant like to come up and speak? Please state your name.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and City staff. My name is Eric Scheck. I'm here tonight to represent Vandale Homes. As I've spoke before you, Vandale Homes, we're a small private family-run operation out of Riverside, and we are very excited to be here in West Covina and to have the opportunity to make this presentation tonight. I did want to, first of all, compliment Jeff Anderson on preparing the 55 resolutions and all of his time and efforts into the staff report. I thought the staff report did an excellent job of summarizing what we're presenting tonight. With that, I've read all of the conditions and the resolutions, and I do agree with them as they are presented tonight. Just to talk a little bit about the product. Before we bought the property, we did a lot of walking around. We talked to a lot of neighbors, and really tried to understand what the area was all about and what everybody wanted. And the feedback that we got was, one, they wanted larger homes compatible with the sizing that they've got there to keep up the size and the prestige and the property values of the South Hills neighborhood. The other comment was to take advantage of the views. They felt that some of their homes and some of the other homes in the neighborhood had really awesome view potential, but the way the windows were configured, the lack of balconies and decks and stuff didn't really accentuate those, and they were forced to kind of try to work that out in their rear yards, which I had the pleasure of walking the several rear yards and kind of seeing how they designed those. So it was a really great experience, and that's when we started down the journey to kind of figure out how we would design product that would work within what I would say is a challenging topography. You've got multiple heights, multiple levels and grades to work through. So we set down that mission, and we're happy to have the product that we have here before you. As Jeff mentioned, the retaining walls that we've added are only to enlarge the flat area and to provide as much usable yard flat space as we could, especially in the rear and I would say the most commonly used areas of a home. And with our neighborhood outreach, we've reached out to the one homeowner down on on Hidden Valley Drive. There's a single-story home that we would be constructing a two-story home next to. So we went down to meet with her. She was very supportive of our project. We worked through with her about how far the house was set back, the amount of trees and everything that we can plant along here to help screen her privacy. And she wrote a letter of support for the project that we provided to staff as well. We also met with the Claiborne Ridge Homeowners Association, which is the original Riley Homes development, which was near the contiguous 22 lot area that we're now building in. And we committed to continue dialogue with them, especially that we're building in their backyard, and we want to be good neighbors during that process. So we'll be having ongoing series of meetings with them during the construction of the neighborhood. On the timing of the project, optimistically, we'd hope to be starting our model homes next month in March. And that would set us up to have those model homes opened in June or July of this year, and which then we would open for sale on those 22 homes. With that, I just want to kind of touch on a couple of things that Jeff discussed in his staff report. The fencing, regarding the use of iron versus glass, we haven't had any negative feedback per se in terms of the glass. People understand that when they buy a lot with glass, they usually in this size of home, a lot of people have window cleaners, and they'll just amend that into their window cleaning contract to keep that up. And it's a very inexpensive monthly maintenance as part of there, but it does provide a better view as opposed to looking through iron pickets, which are spaced, 3 to 4 inches apart. The focus on garages, we do have a couple of variances that we're asking for tonight, but in listening to past comments during the code amendment, one of our concerns on the garages was to provide choice. So if someone does have the large Cadillac or the large vehicle, there is a home for you. Some of these homes have in excess of the 10 by 20 deep garage, so that configuration would be available for you. If you have smart cars or different size compact cars, but you still have a Yukon or a larger vehicle, we have a garage that would work for you as well. So we do have a lot of configurations there, in addition to the 3 parking stalls on the driveways that are provided for every home. So every home will have 3 on-lot parking stalls to try to deter parking as much as possible onto the streets. So with that, I just wanted to again say thank you to everyone, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Yeah, just another question about the windows. How hard are they to break? I know it was mentioned they're tempered, but, and also if they do break, do you guys stay involved with using the same vendor or just leave it up to the homeowner to go from there?
They're fairly thick glass. They are glass, but they are tempered. So if they do get hit with any object or anything, they will shatter for safety reasons. We do provide all of our buyers the vendor that supplied it, and having installed it in past projects, they do come out and do work not only for builders like myself, but also for private homeowners. So they're very used to doing homeowner calls and replacements and so forth. But it's become very popular, and it's readily available on the market.
Thank you.
Will the owner have the option of glass or wrought iron, or is that not an option for the owner?
We currently we're planning on planning it out in one way or another. So our focus, our intent, our hope would be to have the glass.
Okay.
Blocking glass.
What's the average cost of the home going to be?
We're estimating over $1 million, just over $1 million.
And do you have an anticipated completion date?
At 22 homes, we would hope that we would be built out within 1 year.
Okay. Now, is this going to be a buy, build, or are you just going to build them all at one time?
In phases. We have phases that range between 6 to 4 homes at a time. So when we release for sale, we'll release that first group of homes. When we have a certain percentage or all of that phase built, then we'll start all 6 homes together. So there's a total of 4 phases that we're planning that will help expedite the build out of the project.
Okay.
And then the two lots outside of the project, those will be part of another phase. So you might have 5 units up above with the 1 unit down below, so it gets built concurrently as well.
Thank you. Any further questions of the applicant?
I have a question. Eric, on the, when it comes to the building of the models, do you do one of each 4 that was shown, basically 4 models to begin with?
One of each plan type. So we'll have a Plan 1 and a Plan 2 model.
Okay.
One elevation of each.
So basically 4 homes or 2?
Just 2.
Just the 2?
Just the 2.
Just a comment on the glass. I've been involved with 3-4 projects where that's been used, and my fellow commissioner is concerned about the water spots. It doesn't take long, and I'm not sure how many people are going to hire a window cleaning person to come clean those the screens, but they get very spotted very easily. So I'm almost wondering if maybe a wrought iron might be a consideration. And again, is that going to be an option that the homeowner would have? I don't know if you answered that.
We haven't planned at this point,
Okay.
but we could incorporate that
Okay.
if the commission so choose.
We get dirty real fast. Okay, thanks.
Or some squeegees as gifts.
Okay, anyone else want to speak in favor of the project?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone want to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none, we'll close to the public testimony and open it to commission discussion. Who'd like to go first? Commissioner Menifee?
Yes, I'd like to comment. Commissioner Blackburn and I are the current design review subcommittee for this commission. And we had an opportunity a month or so ago to meet with the Vandale staff and to go over all these things. And I was very impressed with the presentation, very impressed with their demeanor, with their willingness to look at very detailed issues. And so I would say I'm very much in support of what the conclusion has become.
Thank you. Commissioner Blackburn?
Just to go along with Commissioner Menifee, it was enjoyable to go over the project. It's compliments to staff too, as far as that preparation. A lot of work on everybody's part, but I would definitely be in favor of the project.
Commissioner Darn?
I'll echo the comments and say the designs look great. Glad to see these homes come in. The lots are ready and waiting, so it'd be really nice to have them complete. Thank you.
I agree with my fellow commissioners, and it's about time. It's been too long. Of course, you're going to have to find a place for all the coyotes to go now up there. You know, they're going to displace them and bring them down to my house. But no, I think it's going to be great, and they really look like they're going to be a value added to the city, and I don't think you're going to have any problem selling them, that's for sure. So I'm looking forward to it. Okay, are there any of the individual ones that any of the commission want to pull off before we group them together to talk on an individual basis? Okay, so as I understand it then, what we'll do is have resolution numbers for item number 2 through 23 and vote on it on just one.
Yes, I can read off the resolution numbers.
Do you expect me to read them back?
No, you don't. And I'm not going to read them all off. I'll give you ranges so we don't have to read them all. I got writer's cramp trying to write them all down to make sure I have the right numbers. But conditional use permits will be resolutions 14-5552 through 14-5562. And the variances will be resolutions 14-1, scratch that. Resolutions 14-5563 through 14-5584. The administrative use permits will be 14-5585 through 14-5606. And you will be approving the 22 subcommittee for design review requests. So those 4 things will be the motion.
Okay, go back to the very first one. It was 14-5552 and
Yep.
through 62.
Through 5562, correct.
Okay, and that was for what now?
Conditional use permits.
Conditional use permits, okay. Okay, and then we got admin and we got variance. So, and what was the last one? How do we?
Subcommittee, there are no resolutions, but that's be included in the vote to approve the subcommittee for design reviews, for the
Okay.
22 houses.
Okay. So, I have a motion for the CUP of 14-5552 through 5562, variances 14-5563 through 5584, and administrative use permits 14-5585 through 14-5606, and approve the subcommittee
Reviews.
design.
Yeah.
So moved.
No moves. Do I have a
Second.
motion? Second by Dario. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. This is final unless appealed to the city council within 10 days?
That's correct.
Okay. Very good. Congratulations. Good luck. Get to work. Get them shovels out there.
I'm going to get our other commissioner.
Officer, could you get Commissioner Valles to come back in, please? Okay. Brings us to where'd she go home? Jeff, you know our TV isn't working there? Oh. Let it be noted that Commissioner Velez has rejoined the group. All right, there we go. Okay, I think this brings us to non-hearing items. Initiation of code amendment for guest house standards. Do we need a staff report?
Yes, Senior Planner Fabiola Wong will be presenting that report.
Good evening, Chairman and Planning Commissioners and members of the community. The purpose of this code amendment is to consider changes to the West Covina Municipal Code that governs how the City of West Covina may review and approve guest houses. Recently, there has been a concern raised that guest houses are allowed by the city by right without any discretionary review or approval and no requirement to notify adjacent residents. Any changes to the code would only address guest houses in the future, but will not address the removal or appeal of current existing guest houses. Currently, guest houses are allowed by right under the city's municipal code and requires a ministerial permit issued by the planning department. A ministerial act is a government action performed according to legal authority, established procedures or instructions without exercising any individual judgment. In layman's terms, in regards to guest houses, if the plan being proposed and how the guest house is being designed and it meets all the standards stated in the municipal code, planning staff must approve the guest house. The planning department does not have the ability to provide any discretionary review, place any mitigating conditions on the development to minimize any potential impacts to adjacent neighbors or residents, or even provide notice to adjacent property owners. Being allowed by right, there is no discretionary review and approval and no appeal or revocation process. In approving the ministerial permit for a guest house, the planning department reviews the following setbacks: lot coverage, height, the size of the guest house, which cannot exceed 640 square feet, and also the floor plan to make sure that there's no cooking facilities being proposed. If the plan meets all the mentioned standards, the planning department must approve it. The only case where a guest house may have a discretionary review by planning and the planning commission subcommittee is when it's being proposed in front of the primary dwelling unit. And if you recall, there's a couple of them that have come in front of the planning commission in those cases. So therefore, even in those cases, the planning commission as well as subcommittee is limited to just reviewing the design of the structure to ensure that the proposed guest house is compatible with the design of the primary dwelling unit that it's on the property. The municipal code also requires that a covenant be recorded with the Los Angeles County Recorder's Office that states the restrictions being placed on the structure. The covenant runs with the structure and the land, and it states the size of the structure approved, a description of the floor plan, that there will be no kitchen or cooking facilities allowed, and it cannot be rented, and that the structure is only for the use of the people residing in the primary dwelling unit that it's on the property. If the Planning Commission determines to initiate the code amendment, the staff will schedule a study session to provide additional information regarding guest houses, included a survey of other cities within the San Gabriel Valley to see whether they allow them, and if they do, what kind of development standards they have. That basically concludes my presentation, and we are seeking input and guidance from the Planning Commission.
And I'd just like to follow up with a couple of thoughts on process, and I think that some of we've gone through some code amendments recently, so maybe self-explanatory, but generally what happens is when the Planning Commission initiates a code amendment, then staff begins work on the code amendment to research, as Fabiola just covered, and we bring back a study session with some other standards that other cities might have, the standards that we have in the code, perhaps some thoughts from staff on alternative ways that could be reviewed, and then the Planning Commission will provide discussion or have discussion, then provide staff direction at some point, maybe one study session, maybe two, depends on the issue that comes up. And then after provided direction, we will bring back a public hearing for the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission can recommend something to the City Council, and if the Planning Commission does recommend that, then it goes to schedule for a City Council hearing with the same thing, public hearing for the City Council. The City Council ultimately makes a decision if the code should be changed. So I just wanted to kind of make sure that everyone understood how this process would go forth from here.
Thank you. Commissioner Menifee?
Yes, Fabiola. You mentioned that there's no allowance for kitchen, but there is an allowance for a bathroom.
That is correct.
So there's electricity and there's water, and there could be gas if somebody wanted an extra heater there,
Absolutely. They are
which means
considered-
they have all of what they would need to put a kitchen in at any time, wouldn't they?
That is correct.
Yeah.
They are considered habitable space, and under the building code, in every habitable area must have heating. Heating is required, not air conditioning, but, so yes, to answer your question,
Yeah.
yes.
So they've got all the utilities there.
Absolutely,
All
yes.
right. Thank you.
Not separate meters, but
Right.
yes, they do have utilities.
And did I understand you to say that the occupants have to be someone that lives within the primary residence?
Yes, they're supposed to be for the use of the people residing in the primary structure.
So when you call it a guest house, it's kind of a misnomer, isn't it?
It is. It's basically, if you have someone, yes, that is visiting you, can remain in that structure.
So basically, it's not to have it so you rent it out to
It's not,
somebody else.
it's not for income
It's
purposes.
family or
Correct.
friends of the immediate
Yes,
family.
if you have your son, a daughter who's an adult and wants to stay there.
And there's nothing in the code right now that states that it could only be for a certain amount of days or anything like that, right?
No.
Okay.
And I don't know the evolution of the term guest house, where that came from. It's something in the history of West Covina that someone decided to name it that.
Of
So
course, now they call them man caves too, you know?
yes, there may be some other names that would be more current.
Any further questions of staff? Commissioner Blackburn? Commissioner Valiant? No? I guess this is a time we would like to hear your input. I know you have concerns out there, and I ask you to hold off, and I have a couple of cards here, so we are interested in what you have to say, and it will help us to decide where we go from here. So the first person I would like to ask to come up is Marietta Spallone, and I would ask you to try to refrain to 5 minutes.
I time myself already.
Okay, okay, all right. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, but I will kind of hit on some of the things they already said, but I just got to read it, otherwise I'm going to get all messed up.
It's your time.
All right, thank you. So we've been asked to attend this meeting to request the study formally in order to amend the code because of the situation at 1103 Furcroft. It's clear there are loopholes in the current code. The way it is written can be interpreted many ways, depending on the individual. We believe amendments should be made to protect the quality of life, privacy, and property values of the tax-paying residents. The study should review the surrounding cities in San Gabriel Valley that have been more specific. Here are some suggestions we would like the study to include. First of all, we'd like the definition of guest house to be clearly defined, including the word temporary. The City of Walnut defines guest house as not a permanent residence and is designated for temporary use only by the occupants of the primary residence and their non-paying guests. Baldwin Park clearly states in their code, guest house and accessory structure are prohibited. Bathrooms in an accessory structure are prohibited. The other thing is planning said a guest house was under city ordinance and second units under state law. Both have similarities, but both are very different. Code should be composed for each because of their differences. True intent of any proposed structure should be made clear and clearly understood by and before planning approval. Commissioners' committee should review and approve any second units, guest house, etc. Most are built in the back the majority of the time, and since the committee represents the voice of the people, our hope is they would keep in mind the relationship to all adjacent properties, not just from the front. The lot and size calculation of any said structure should be reevaluated, also considering the minimum primary residence size. In Walnut, the minimum lot area required for a guest house must be at least 15,000 square feet, with a minimum primary residence size of 2,500 square feet. Baldwin Park requires a 10,000 square foot lot for allowing an accessory structure of only 300 square feet. 1103 Furcroft is 9,081 square foot lot with a 1,978 square foot home, not including the attached garage, and now a guest back house shed of almost 600 square feet. Scale should not be overlooked. Any proposed structure should have its own codes and design guidelines and not fall under the same section as a patio cover, as we were told in the January 28th meeting. Any proposed structure should have an on-site inspection before approval. If the city cannot afford to do this, then submitted plans should be attached. Pictures along with plan maps showing relation to adjacent properties affected and said projected, especially in areas on elevated lots and small lots. Any proposed structure should have to notify neighbors before plan approval of said project, especially on elevated grade lots. Any proposed structure should take into account windows. New windows should be placed where they promote privacy between properties. Again, this is from the Baldwin Park Design Guidelines section, which I'll show you. They give you even a picture, okay, a diagram. Landscaping plans should be required at the same time of approval to provide a buffer between neighboring properties and to enhance the overall residential environment. The codes West Covina decides to enforce should be updated to reflect the times we live in. The dates the codes you're following now are outdated, which we saw by this last presentation. Shasta Street was built when Furcroft was still in Orange Grove. My neighbors told me all that. So no one worried about guest house when it was oranges. The appearance of residential property is important to overall appearance of our neighborhood. How well a house fits on the site and its surrounding environment contributes to the public view and success of a project. All forms of residential development, including additions, new accessory buildings, and new homes, should first take into account the site in which the structure will be built and the streetscape pattern of the neighborhood. In well-established neighborhoods, it is especially important to maintain the character of the neighborhood by respecting the pattern of the surrounding streetscape. Effective site planning should reflect the natural attributes of the site while maintaining compatibility with the neighborhood. This is all from the Baldwin Park Guidelines Manual, Design Guidelines Manual. I encourage you all to read it. It is written clearly to enhance the city and to be considerate to all parties involved. They and the City of Walnut have to abide by the Los Angeles municipal codes. Why is it that they defined and described theirs clearly and West Covina has not? The commissioner told us that the state is pressuring cities to allow guest back house, second units, etc. It's time the City of West Covina amend and update their policy codes and procedures so that they may indeed live up to their claim of preserving the essential residential character of West Covina, City of Beautiful Homes. And I didn't want to ask all the neighbors that attended before to come again, so I was advised that if I just got their signature after they read this, you'd remember it's not me here with the big mouth. It's these 40 people that my face and our faces represent. And this was not us banging on doors and asking people to sign. This was the people that walk the dogs and stop in our front yards and play with our other dogs that said, what's going on? Some people live on Furcroft that signed this, that are her neighbors. And these are people that live in the community, not in the $1 million area, but in the neighborhood that aren't happy. There's 40 signatures.
Okay, you're at 6 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Made some
so
good
do
points.
I give this to the city clerk?
Give it to staff.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Martha Flores?
Okay, I'm one of the neighbors affected by the guest house on 1103 Furcroft
owned by Mr. and Mrs. Chan. I live at 1102 South Shasta Street in West Covina, so my backyard faces their backyard. I'm here to find out why the city approved the plans for the guest house without inspecting or requiring proper plans for being on an elevated grade lot that would invade the privacy of 4 other homes. This is what the original, I believe I showed you this before. Okay. As you can see, the original structure had a window which faced directly into my backyard, my living room, my bedroom, my bathroom, and also a direct view into my neighbors, the Spallone's yard, bedroom, and bathroom. This tells me that when the city approved the plans, they did not consider how it would affect my privacy and that of my neighbors. In a conversation with Mr. and Mrs. Chan, they admitted to me and my husband that they never thought what the guest house would look like from anywhere else other than from their property. When they came to my house and saw the view from my backyard, they were surprised. They admitted that they would have been upset too if we built one facing their yard. Okay. Since the January 28th meeting that we came, the window now has been covered. Now our view is of a 15-foot wall of barrier siding and a massive shingled roof that doesn't match the materials of the Furcroft primary residence. In addition, after reviewing the submitted plans, we see the large window that intrudes on my neighbors, the Spallones, is in the entry area. It is not required by fire code. This window placement and size looks directly into both of the Spallones' bedrooms, bath, and entire yard. Why didn't planning suggest better window placement and/or design to maintain privacy between homes? Why haven't Mr. and Mrs. Chan redesigned this window now that they see the problem? It's not just a privacy issue when we are in our backyards enjoying our pools and spa, but we now also have to keep our window treatments closed up. This is a year-round privacy loss. When Mr. Anderson and Christopher Chung and Ron Garcia came to our homes and saw the guest house in person from my backyard, they all said they would not want this in their backyards. So Mr. and Mrs. Chan and the gentleman from City Planning all agree they would not want this view from their backyard, but my neighbors and I are stuck with the view and we have to get used to it. We should not have to live with the invasion of our privacy, the unattractive view, the loss of our quiet enjoyment, the decrease of our property value, and the threat of who will be living in this structure if Mr. and Mrs. Chan sell their home because the city did not use logic and common sense. There is a section in the West Covina land use elements which states, the city land use pattern and development should reflect the needs and desires of its citizens and reinforce the city as a community of high quality, stability, and good taste. We feel the city did not consider the needs and desires of its residents. The planning department should keep the big picture in mind for the well-being of the city and all the residents. When homeowners are focused on themselves and the changes they want to make to their own property, it is the planning department's duty to consider the surrounding residents and the impact and proposed structure would have on others. The city needs to amend codes so this does not happen again, but they also have a responsibility to rectify the error in judgment made at 1103 Furcroft and the impact it has on our lives and property. After doing research on the surrounding San Gabriel Valley city codes, it is clear that West Covina is lacking on the well-being of the residents they claim to serve. There are a few neighbors who came here today, but we represent many that feel the same way, and the city of West Covina has an obligation to us. I've been living at my home for over 25 years. I'm a taxpayer. I've never had any problems. I don't own $1 million home, and I think we all deserve to have the same courtesies. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Jeff, a few comments. We do have, just for clarification, we do have lot size standards in it right now, don't we, Fabiola? I mean, you have to have a certain lot size before you can build a certain size structure, correct?
Basically, what we look at, the code allows one guest house per parcel regardless of the size, as I stated in the staff report. What we look at is basically the lot coverage. You
Right.
cannot go above 35%. So all the structures that have a roof area cannot cover more than 35% of the entire parcel.
Right.
But the code currently allows one guest house per parcel.
Right. But it still has to meet setbacks and things from
Correct.
property
Yes.
lines and all that. So there are
Yes.
standards.
Yes, the standards that are on the code, which is the setbacks, the height, the materials, if they're supposed to be compatible, especially, obviously, if they're in the front and the back. Unfortunately, we don't have design guidelines that will prevent planning from, again, asking or imposing any conditions. And we look at the floor plan to make sure that there's no cooking facilities at the time we approve at least the structure. And we also require a covenant. We actually don't approve the plans until a covenant has been filed, and they bring us a copy and proof that it's been filed.
And it still has to, the building itself still has to meet code.
Correct.
Right.
And then once
approve
planning
that.
approves the structure, they will submit the plans with the construction design to the building department for review.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Any questions of staff? You have any questions? Any questions? None? Okay. I think I heard somebody say, too, that they boarded up the window that was out there right now. So it seems to me, well, I know, okay, but it seems to me they're willing to cooperate a little bit with you. So that's a good start anyway. And as we said earlier, what we're doing here today is not to go backwards. So what we're looking at now is to see if we need to change something going forward. I want to make sure you understand that. We can't go backwards on this thing. Okay. So where do we go from here, Jeff?
So we have a resolution before you that would initiate the code amendment to allow us to start reviewing the guest house standards and doing some surveys for how other cities might, what other cities allow in terms of this type of structures, and also let staff kind of look at maybe different ways of addressing some of the issues that have been brought up. So that would get us started in that. So the question before the Planning Commission tonight is, do you want to initiate a code amendment, or are you okay with the standards that we have now? That's really what the question is.
Anybody want to start? Sure. Commissioner Menifee?
Very simply, I think the answer is yes. We're here because we like to listen to people who take the time to quantify the problems that we still face. And having done so, we would be very remiss as a commission if we didn't say, let's look at this more. This is an aside. I'm interested in the numbering system we use in West Covina. When this lady lives at 1102 Shasta, and I live at 1134 Shasta, the next house over from her, but there's about a quarter of a mile between us. Anyway, that's just an aside.
Commissioner Blackburn?
Yes, I'd certainly agree with my fellow Commissioner, Dr. Menifee, regarding we're here to try to help. We want to change whatever codes. I can certainly empathize and sympathize with what you're going through. I think one of the items that the speaker talked about was Walnut and how they had a code for the guest house, which was a temporary housing for the resident or whatever. That's how sometimes misunderstandings, unclear codes, which we have basically fallen through the cracks a little bit. What's temporary? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 2 months? I mean, I'm sure if Walnut had a temporary housing as far as their guest house, somebody came and stayed there for 2 months, nobody complains. If they stay there for 6 months, do they complain? So I would certainly be in favor of having the planning department get involved and certainly try to make some different code amendments to our city plan.
Commissioner Castellanos?
I agree as well. That's why we're here, to listen and take everyone's thoughts and concerns into consideration, the entire city. So that's what we'll do. That's what we're here to discuss. And I think, to be fair, I think it would be fair to say that the planning department didn't use a lack of judgment, but worked within the framework that exists but that's why we're going to look at everything and see what needs to be done and be as fair as possible to everybody.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow commissioners. This has never come up before. We've had a problem, so it's, it's not like you look for something if there's not a problem. So, number one, I'm glad you brought it to our attention so we can look at it. And I'll tell you right now, like, people aren't allowed to live in garages and all that, but I can tell you right now in this city, there's so many garages that are made into bedrooms and all that. There's no way we can really find these unless somebody tells us about it, and then we turn it over to code enforcement and all that. But there's a lot of violations that are going on today. And I will tell you, no matter what we do with these, whatever you want to call them, guest houses or whatever, people are going to violate whatever is going on in there. I mean, what's to stop you from taking a hot plate in there? But I think we do need to look at it. I'd like to see what other cities have together. One of the definite things I'd like to see in our revision is that we do notifications to the surrounding neighbors, which we did not have to do before. And again, the planning department was working within the parameters that were set forth, so it wasn't a problem. And now all of a sudden it's come up, so I think we definitely need to look at it. I don't want to make it so stringent that people are handcuffed if they want to do something, but I think there needs to be a happy medium. And we do have some standards today. I mean, as far as lot size, as far as setbacks, as far as they have to meet construction codes and code and all that. So there are some parameters there today, but again, it needs to be tweaked. It needs to be looked at. And I know there's a lot of people that don't like to have pools in their backyard because of the neighbor, or the neighbors don't like to have their neighbors to have pools in it because it's noisy and all that. But, it is their home, it is their property, and there are certain rights that they do have. And I just think that we need to massage this a little bit and come up with something, and it probably won't fit everybody's, well-being, but we'll do the best we can, and we'll send it and look at it and study it, and when we get information back from the Planning Commission, and we'll go from there. And I thank you for your input.
Sorry. I just want to let you know that I totally agree with the revision of the code. And it's very unfortunate that that you're going through this. It's something that it's done, and I don't think there's much we can do, but we will sure try to help whatever it's coming up now, revising more, watch it more closely, and I'm sorry for the misfortune that you're going through. Yeah.
So do we want to make a motion to the Planning Commission to come back with a study?
Yes, what you would do is we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution to initiate the code amendment.
Okay.
And the resolution number would be 14-5607.
14-5607. Okay, do we have a motion for 14-5607?
Make the motion.
All approved?
Second.
Passes 5-0.
And let me just make one other comment. I know some of the residents have provided me an email address. If someone wants to provide an email address or a snail mail address, either one, we've created an interested parties list, and we can include anybody else who wants to be on that list. I know Ms. Spallone has been helpful in getting me information, and we can continue to work that way. And we will notify, so when we have the study session, we will notify you by a notice, courtesy notice that's usually sent out usually a week or 10 days before the date of the study session. And the Thursday before the Thursday before the meeting, then the items will be on the website. So you can get all the staff reports were on to the website for tonight's meeting last Thursday. So that's how you get the information that's there.
Again, I want to thank you for your input on this thing. And again, I want to make the comment, it sounds to me like the person that built the structure is kind of willing to work with you. At least they sealed up the windows, so it's not like they're just, doing standoffs. So hopefully it won't cause any, bad feelings between all of you. I'm sure when they built that, they didn't think they were going to impose like they have on you. And hopefully you'll get along and it'll work out. So thank you for coming in tonight. I really appreciate it, and we'll keep you posted as to what's going on. Thank you. You'll sign my pink slip? Do you know what that means? I'm fired?
I know, I wasn't planning on speaking, but my name is Wendy Duncan and I live at 1032 South Shasta, next door to Martha. I've lived there for over 33 years. And I'd like, when you consider revisions in the code, that you also include parking. I know Claremont, when they have a granny flat, they have to have parking also for that. And I worry about the parking because if you say it has to be people that live in the residence that live there, that's hard to control who's going to really live there, just like it's hard to control the cooking. But it will add more cars on the street, and if they don't have parking. But in Claremont, they do have to have parking on residence site, not on the street. So I hope you consider that also.
I can't tell you how many times it's come before City Council about parking in this city, and it's really a tough one, that most of the residents do not want to have restricted parking because of larger families and their kids are living there and all that, but it's a valid point that you make. This is not two-way discussion. Okay. Thank you very much. We're finished with this item?
Yeah.
I think so. Okay, that takes us to study session, security gate guidelines. Staff report, please.
Yes. We do have residential security gate standards that were last revised in April of 2012. These standards are to help when a apartment complex or a multifamily condominium project or some other type of development, residential development, wants to put in either as a new development or as an existing development, they want to put in security gates, so that we have standards that tell how dimensions and separations and things like that. One of the things that came up in the last year or so as we were looking through these is that we had a standard that was incorrect based on what the fire department requires. So we were stating that a minimum two-way driveway width of 20 was in compliance when fire was telling people it was 25, and since they know their stuff better than we do, we thought we better talk to them. So we did talk to the fire department. We're suggesting two revisions. One, to revise the minimum two-way driveway width as recommended by the fire department from 20 to 25 feet, and then basically just to renumber those standards because we're combining two of the standards together for clarity. And that concludes it. The presentation, it's very simple. This also does require a resolution number and a vote, so we will have 57 resolutions tonight. Yeah. The resolution number will be 14-5608.
Okay, do I have a motion for resolution 14-5608?
So moved.
Second.
First and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0. Takes us to continuation of oral communications. Anybody wish to speak? Didn't have a chance to speak on the item. Mr. Stewart? Still with us? Okay. Okay. You didn't say pretty please or anything, okay.
My understanding when this guest house was built, I was told that there would be no kitchen. I was told that there was no bar area where they could have cooking or kitchen or anything, or any counter at all. That's what, no counter. It would just be a bathroom, a closet, and then a place to sleep. My understanding now is, what I want to know is, after it's built, are they allowed to add on to a bar sink or a kitchen or anything? Because the permit says that there's a bar sink, and I don't understand that.
Well,
If I may.
once it's built and it's I'm sorry, what? Jeff?
First of all,
Okay.
they sign a covenant that they will not have any kitchen facilities. That's part of the standard. So What happens after it's approved is what was referred to earlier. We don't have much control, but every single guest house that we have has signed a covenant that they will not have any kitchen facilities.
Yeah, and it's almost impossible. I mean, we don't have the right to go back in 3 months, 6 months and check it out. I mean, we just can't do that. So like I said before, with the garages and all these things that are going on, it's very hard to police something like that. Okay? Yeah. I can't answer your question.
If I may, Commissioner Holtz, the item has been heard, and the community has had an opportunity to speak on the item, and the resolution has been passed. It would be my advice to the Planning Commission not to engage in a back and forth with the citizens. There are certainly opportunities for the citizenry to address their concerns with other departments in the city, but the Planning Commission is not the forum for that, nor is that item on the agenda. So to engage in the back and forth would be a violation of the Brown Act.
Thank you very much. Commission reports, comments, and miscellaneous items. It's a time when any member of the commission may bring a matter to the attention of the full commission as within the scope of duties assigned to the commission. Any item that was considered during the agenda is not appropriate for discussion in this section of the agenda. No commission discussion or action can be considered at this time. If the commission desires to discuss any issue raised by a speaker or take an action, the commission may vote to agendize the matter for future meeting. Are there any comments, reports? None? I attended the LA Fitness opening, and it's really a great structure if you haven't had a chance. And I will tell you, I'm not working for them or anything, but it's really reasonable. They were signing people up on Saturday for $29 a month. No contract, no initiation fees. All you have to do is pay the first month and last month, and you can cancel any month that you want. Unlimited use. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And it really is a beautiful facility. And it's, when you see all the machines and everything in there, it's really great.
Should try using them.
Yeah, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. They look nice. They look like I see them over there. And then the four-wheel parts, they're open, but the grand opening is this Saturday? Or
That's correct. The grand opening is this Saturday at 9 o'clock, I believe.
Okay. And that's a nice structure, too. They really turned that out nice. Anyone else? No? Yes, Betty?
I have a question in regards to, I don't know if it's proper to ask right now, but in regards to that conference that's going to be held in San Francisco. That's next. I'm sorry.
Okay, Planning Director's report.
In San Francisco, I don't know if you've heard, but there's going to be a planning conference in March. So we wanted to put that on there because we know there's been some questions, and we provided you some input or some information on that via email. And so I wanted to put it on the agenda in case we had any questions, because it's hard. It's much easier to talk about it as a group than it is one-on-one and then try to relay the information back. And it's a good conference to attend. I think we have someone in the audience who might also recommend if you talk to him or any other former planning commissioner who's been. I think they've all found it to be very educational and very helpful. As with almost everything else with the city, we're strained with budgets, and one of the things that happened a few years back is that with all the other cuts, there was cuts to the Planning Commission budget, and so at that time it was the budgets were cut so that there wasn't enough available for every single Planning Commission to attend without having to use money out of their own pocket. So the way it's sort of set up now is that each commissioner has a certain fund that he's allowed, or they're allowed, if there was a time in the past that I do recall that the commission would discuss, and at that time, which was probably about 15 years ago, there wasn't enough funds for everyone to attend either. The commission would discuss, and people who wanted to attend, usually about 2 of them, and I think that was how it would work today. Two commissioners could probably attend if everybody else agreed to let them use the funds, and it would cover most, probably not all from our calculations, but most of the expenditures to attend. But any more than 2 that people that attend, it starts to increase the amount that's going to have to be paid out of each individual's pocket. So that's kind of the situation that we find ourselves in. And I would say this too, just so you know that everybody is in the same bucket. I guess we're all in the same bucket. Staff used to also have funds to attend, and we used to attend with the planning commissioners, but we do not have the funds to attend. So if I wanted to attend, I would also have to pay out of my own pocket. We don't have the funds available to attend this kind of, it's just the way that it's been over the last few years with trying to reduce budgets and keep the city, in the black.
But my understanding, you can't take the $500, if only 2 are going and somebody gets 1,000, it's $500 per individual.
It's $500 per individual. The reason to have it on the agenda is to talk and see if you would be willing, as a commission, to do that, to allow 2 people to go. The other way to do it is just everyone pay their own way and use whatever's available, and some people have used some funds. Some funds have, the total amount is not available because some people have used funds for certain things, business cards, attending events, those kind of things. That's where the funds come from for those things. So if any of you have used those funds, then you have less than the number, the 600 that the chairman was referring to.
Well,
Jeff.
San Francisco is quite expensive. I mean, I used to be up there twice a week. You're really hard pressed to find a hotel within reason, and your meals are very expensive. And then you have transportation, even if we would take a city car or something like that. So it's quite expensive to go up there. And besides that, I heard that the enrollment has been structured down to a very few, like they did in Pasadena. It's probably closed out by now anyway.
That is a possibility. I don't think that we have looked into that recently to know if there's still availability, but they did scale it back so that it became harder. In the old days, there was plenty of room for anybody, but they scaled it back to reduce costs because the League of California Cities also was trying
and the staff that runs the academy gets first stab on the rooms and all that anyway. So that eliminates, it's not open season, type thing.
I was just going to say that much of the same thing about San Francisco. It was at Pasadena last year, and we had a problem. We weren't able to go. Does that mean it will likely be at Pasadena next year?
Not necessarily Pasadena, but it'll likely
Southern
be
California.
Somewhere around this area.
Yeah, and I can't recall if do they have a Central California?
In San Diego, I think, one year.
It probably, it's been in I myself went to one in San Diego probably 7, 8 years ago, and it was in Sacramento once, right? It's been in Sacramento, and I think it's been in the Valley.
So it kind of goes north-south, north-south.
Yeah, I think it does go more north-south, but it could be in San Diego, not necessarily local. Or it could be in the desert or something, too. But it's liable to be closer than San Francisco.
Yeah, okay.
I have a request to staff, and let me know if it's possible. Is it possible to look around local cities around here to see what the stipends is, number one, for planning commissioners, and what the budget is for planning commissioners?
Yes, all that will be discussed as part of the budget process that we're beginning to go through. That's really not a question for staff. That's really a question for the city council. And it's a question of the whole, it's the whole picture, trying to figure out where we want to put our scarce resources.
No, yeah, but I guess what I'm saying, is there a way you can call these different cities and find out what their stipends and what their...
We may be able to do that. I don't... We would have some information, but I don't know what that wouldn't change the picture necessarily.
No, I know, but it would be information for us to know where we stand.
Yeah. We can try to do that.
I'd like to know.
Yeah.
Do you all agree?
Yeah. Well, as a separate issue, though, we're talking about the San Francisco Academy. I don't care whether I go or not, so I would certainly be supportive of, if someone else wants to go, making whatever funds I have available to that person.
So can you arbitrarily do that, Jeff?
Yes.
You can?
There's
Okay.
nothing in, it's sort of a set-up policy, but it's not in the budget that way. The budget just says the planning commission has this pot of money.
Okay, so you just
And then we
divide
set
it.
up a policy or a sort of a guideline that says each one has this. But that I think, like I said, I think that's how it worked 15 years ago or so. Then there was a budgetary issue then. Then we got more money, and so the planning commission had more money assigned to them so they could go to the things. But now we're sort of back where we were. So, everything's a big circle. So we're kind of back where we were. But that's how it was done before, yeah.
Jeff, is the money that's put into the account for the commissioners, is that a fiscal or is that a calendar year?
Fiscal. It's part of the budget for the whole city.
Which is?
July to June.
Okay. Just a comment, I wish that I would have liked to have gone last year. It was close. It would have been basically no money out of our pocket. We could have driven over, a couple of us together. That didn't work out. I was a little bit disappointed. I was very disappointed this year, in as much as I made a few phone calls just to see what the cost would be. And well, back up just a little bit. I think the application had to be in by February 8th. So I think even if we wanted to go, it's probably too late. Staff could probably check on that, but that's what I was told. As far as hotel, food, housing, as close as I could tell, it's probably would cost each commissioner that attended, if they don't get money from the other commissioners' fund, close to $1,100, maybe $1,200 to attend. That's if we could get a hotel. The hotel where the academy is full. So not only would you have to get a hotel somewhere else, you'd have to have taxi back and forth. So I think it's close to $1,100, maybe even $1,200 out of whoever's pocket to attend, which I'm not sure.
Parking's very expensive up there, too. And just a comment on it, last year in Pasadena, even though it was local, we did, correct me if I'm wrong, we did not get enough money to cover the tuition. I think it was $5.25 or
I think that's right.
$5.50 or something.
Yeah.
It was more than, even though it was Pasadena, the tuition was more than we were allowed as individuals. Just a comment.
But we do get $37.50 a month.
And the city wants you to cash those checks one of these days, please. Okay, anything other? No.
Well, just to add to that, I am interested in going, so if we could, maybe continue the conversation tomorrow and see what kind of possibility exists still.
Okay, we'll check into availability. And
go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to suggest, and this was mostly a discussion. We weren't necessarily trying to. There's no reso required. Okay. We weren't trying to come necessarily to a conclusion here, but I wanted to get the information and allow for some exchange of ideas here. We can provide that information, and I think now that you understand, there may be there likely will be some out of pocket. And I guess it might be interesting to hear if others, I know Commissioner Menifee has expressed that he would be okay with people using his funds. If others feel that same way, then that might be helpful for those who are attending. So we will find out information, then send an email out, and I guess we'd like to, we do need to start wrapping it up either way, whether there's availability.
It's not like we're asking to go to China.
Not yet, at least. No.
That's easier.
Okay, is that it for item 26?
That's it, yeah.
All right. City Council action.
Well, I should have known there was going to be a test. Don't think we had anything at City Council that came through the Planning Commission at the last meeting. I'm trying to recall. No, there's nothing from the Planning Commission.
Okay, if nothing further, I'll ask ready to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Aye. We're adjourned.